Welcome, everyone. The speaker for today, I'm sure a lot of you are very excited. Oh, by the way, before I forget, you can post your ideas or questions here in the chat. We'll be announcing it. We'll be reading it later for the question and answers. But first, we will start with a talk given to us by Dr. Mindy Ceron. So Hasminda's career has been dedicated to teaching and research since she earned her bachelor's degree. She's taught as a social science instructor at the ICCT colleges and Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina, and she was a senior lecturer at the UP Archaeological Studies program. In the field of research, Hasminda was part of the medical anthropology team at FERN or FERN Incorporated, and she joined various local and international projects in the Philippines, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. She and her postgraduate colleagues at the Museum Studies of the University of the Philippines created an education program for grade school pupils at San Vicente Public School in parallel with museum and communities. Hasminda was also part of the team that started to build a community museum at Sibaltan, Palawan in 2010, during the University of Washington Archaeological Field School in collaboration with the Archaeological Studies program of UP Diliman. She did her undergrad in anthropology in UP Diliman, also did her master's in archaeology in UP Diliman, and finished her PhD in University of Otago, an PhD in archaeology. So please, let's all welcome Dr. Hasminda Ceron.
Thank you, Anna, and to the BINALOT organizers. Can I turn off my video so that you can concentrate on the PowerPoint presentation?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. All right. I am grateful to be here today to share about my project. And in this short lecture, I will be sharing what I have learned in museology and archaeology, and at the same time, applying the methods so that others can also use the data that I will be sharing and publishing in the digital space. Before we delve into the main area of what I would like to impart, let's briefly look at the concept of heritage and managing cultural and scientific resources. So my interest in heritage management started during my undergraduate curatorship class in art studies, which was taught by Ms. Boots Herrera, and during my coursework in museum studies with Professor Herrera and Professor Labrador. I see a correlation between how heritage management and the creation of archaeological and modern botanical databases are connected and significant. Heritage is part of culture, and archaeology plays an important role in unearthing the unknown, disseminating knowledge, and safeguarding the heritage. So if we look at this diagram, culture comprises of different systems. Culture is a component that is important for cultural managers and for us as stakeholders in terms of understanding, appreciating, and safeguarding the ways of life in the past and present. So the anthropologist Edward Taylor, he defined culture as a complex whole, which includes knowledge, beliefs, morals, art, laws, and any other capabilities acquired by man as a member of a group or society. So similar to the definition of culture that UNESCO provided, it states that culture is a way of life, a way of living that consists of behavioral patterns, arts, beliefs, institutions, and all other products of human work and thoughts shared that reflects the identity of a group. Heritage comes from the Anglo-French term hériter, which means to inherit, and late Latin word heredita, which means heir. So heritage is legacies from the past, what we live with today, and what we individually or collectively pass on from one generation to another. Heritage has two classifications. The first classification is the intangible heritage. This is a category of heritage that encompasses practices, representations, expressions, knowledge, and skills of communities, groups, or in some cases, individuals. So an example for this is the Hudhud heritage chants of the Ifugao. The word tangible comes from the Latin word tangibilis or tangere, which means touch. So tangible heritage is another category of heritage that covers cultural heritage such as works of a man, like craft, monuments, buildings, and sites. And we also have the natural heritage, which is part of tangible heritage, which are works of nature, such as physical, biological, geological, and physiographical formations and natural sites. For cultural managers to choose and declare a site or any cultural materials as heritage, some categories must be considered. So first we have significance, which pertains to the importance, relevance, and meaning of a heritage resource to an individual or a group of people. Heritage may have different levels of significance, like family, band, community, province, region, country, or world. Another category is value. It is an aspect of worth ascribed by people to a heritage resource that is used to justify the heritage resource significance. So looking at these categories, a heritage resource may have range of values for different individuals or group. Heritage has value and it has historical, aesthetics, architectural, scientific, archaeological, social, structure, and landscape significance. So in archaeology, it is not only the stone tools, animal bones, pottery, human remains, the built structure that is studied. We also recover plant remains from the archaeological sites. These archaeobotanical remains are part of the cultural heritage as it communicates archaeological and scientific significance and value, while the modern botanicals are needed as comparatives so that we could identify the recovered archaeological plants that have undergone physical changes due to taphonomy through time. In 2011, during the Paleo-Palawan Archaeological Project exhibition at the UP-ASP Center, there was only one representation of an archaeological plant, the canarium to be specific. This was displayed while human remains, animal bones, and other artifacts were well represented. So in the academic and heritage sectors, how can we manage these botanical references, whether archaeological or modern comparatives, and share them with the public, not just through exhibition? The challenges I and other students encountered were first the identification of the macroplant remains, since the materials are mostly burnt. Next is having appropriate references, such as books and botanical vouchers, to use as comparatives. The problem, even if we have good references, some do not have seed images that are necessary for archaeobotanists to use as comparatives. But the source or some books provide important information, such as the geographical distribution of the plant. Another, accessing the materials from another institution is not as easy, especially the institutions abroad. You have to pay for, you need budget for the airfare, visa, accommodation, food, and other expenses while accessing the materials abroad. It is not easy to get research funding, and not all individuals were born with a silver spoon. So I have encountered some websites that are good to use as a source for archaeological plant identification that is publicly accessible online. For example, the website of Inside Wood. From day one of starting to practice archaeobotany, I was then thinking that archaeologists should start to compile and share the botanical references. It is included in my postgraduate thesis about my plants. After the postgraduate studies, the question was, where am I heading? I would like to do something for others without monetary exchange. Then after self-reflection, I submitted a project proposal to the ASP. So we all know that there are various ways to learn and acquire knowledge. And since the COVID pandemic, most are doing activities online, such as teaching, research, webinars, and conferences. Traveling requires you to expend money, not just for the transportation, living expenses, but paying for quarantine fee and extension of a few more days to wrap up your intended work and lab activities, such as photographing the samples. Plant comparative references are important for those who study plants in archaeology and other disciplines. On the other note, the archaeological plants recovered from archaeological sites tell us myriad stories about the landscape, diet, domestication, and cultivation, and how the plants were used in the past. To give you a brief background about the botanical references, in the UP-ASP, the modern plant comparative collection started when Professor Victor Paz has collected botanical specimens as part of his PhD research. Jane Carlos added other plant materials through time while working as a research associate in the ASP. The collection is composed of plant materials that were donated by individuals and other institutions, bought from the supermarkets and other shops, and collected in different areas within the archaeological sites and other places during the surveys and recreations. Currently, Jane maintains the reference collection that is stored in the dry cabinet and housed at the Plants and Sediment Lab of the UP-ASP. I aim to create a database of modern and archaeological botanical comparatives and share it with the public by publishing the content online so that others can use the data, but with proper use of referencing. In 2016, I carried out a plant survey and collection of the plants with the help of a Vietnamese botanist and archaeologists in the 4 areas in Vietnam for my postgraduate dissertation. So this flowchart shows how the identified and archaeobotanical remains had aided me in the collection of modern plants and the ethnographic study that I did. So a total of 41 families for the modern seeds, 9 varieties of cereals, 11 families of fruits, roots, and tubers, and 38 families of trees were collected. So I analyzed the macrobotanical remains, and the identified plants were my basis for which plants to collect that would be useful and important to add to the reference collection. This is the schema on how I will build the online database using the website of the UP Archaeological Studies program. The data that I will encode includes modern and archaeological botanical comparatives. So most plants were collected from the areas in Vietnam, specifically in the sites of Rap Nui, Lop Giang, Lugak, Chang'an, and Taklak. So few samples will be included from the sites in the Philippines and Hong Kong. The collection is separated by material type, modern and archaeological, and these are arranged by family. Again, the reason why most of these samples were from Vietnam is that the data that I have with me were collected from Vietnam. The majority of the materials that I analyzed and documented are from Vietnam as well. The comparatives consist of modern and archaeological macrobotanicals, which are plant parts commonly recovered and identified in archaeological sites, such as seeds, weeds, fruits. And I will also include some specimens of wood section. So accessioning is the method and practice of creating a permanent record of an object or assemblage received from one source at one time for which the institution has custody, and assigning a unique control number to the material. This is a sample of accession of the modern plants that I will include in the database. So the voucher includes the taxonomy of the plant and the vernacular name, place of collection, description, and this, geographic distribution. So I included the category whether the plant is native or introduced to the country. The ethnobotanical uses of the plants, collectors, and photographers' details are also included. This is another catalog of archaeobotanical sample. I have included the accession number, which will tell us the site of collection, year of excavation, and the number that I assigned for the archaeological plant. I have the photographer's details, and instead of the collector's detail, I have replaced it with the type of recovery, whether flotation, through hand collection, wet sieving, or dry sieving. So this is the system that I use for the identification of the archaeological plants. So for the taxonomic details, first I have to identify the plant based on the diagnostic features and compare the sample with the modern plant comparatives. So if I am 100% definite with the ID of the specimen, I will include the family, scientific name, and vernacular name of the sample. If I have doubts due to lack of comparatives or plant distribution, I will either write the family, genus, and apply the system of determination. I will use the English, Tagalog, and Vietnamese languages for the vernacular names and plant descriptions. This project is not funded, so I am not going to hire a web developer or designer to create the database. There are no other expenditure needed. The botanical database is accessible for all who wish to use the site as a teaching material, study and research purposes for students, teachers, researchers, and other archaeology and botanical enthusiasts. Since this is an open source or open access source, the users must agree and follow on how to properly credit the content, contributors, and the source, especially the images of the archaeological plants. So proper referencing should still be practiced. This project and the output is nonprofit. So part of my broader vision is to extend academic support and scholarships. So I believe that through this, I could communicate and transmit knowledge, also provide awareness and appreciation of cultural and natural resources. And as an alumna of the University of the Philippines, one way for me to give back the service to the community, not just to the ASP per se, is by contributing something to further thrive the education, training, and research, and help other researchers, teachers, and especially the students. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Very much, Mindy. That's I think that's a very noble project. So, by the way, the project was I think Mindy, you already established or contacted the director, Dr. Grace, who's here now. And are you going to? Is this this is already happening, right?
Yes, I started the project last January 3.
All right. Okay. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and I think there's a lot of, especially for new students here. So there's a lot of new students who may be excited. This is a good venture for you if you're interested in doing botanical, archaeobotanical, or ethnobotanical research. If you want to ask any questions, you can raise your hands here at you can press the reactions button below your Zoom uh, screen and press raise hands, or you can put it on the chat box and we will read it out loud. Alternatively, if you're not comfortable mentioning your name, you can privately message Arturo or me so we can read your questions out loud. Okay.
I believe Sir Vic has a question now. So if Sir Vic would like to ask his question.
Hello, Karim. Hello, Mindy. First of
Hi,
all,
sir.
congratulations, Dr. Mindy Ceron. And
Salamat po.
I listened to your talk in that forum. It was a very good talk. You shared your research in Vietnam, archaeobotanically. And this is a very noble approach. I like it that you couched it within the heritage framework, because then it clarifies the relevance, the significance of holding or having a reference collection. But lest we forget, of course, archaeology, philosophically, archaeology's approach has always been comparative. And there's no better way of making sure that we have a sharp comparative handle is to have, especially for archaeobotany, a good reference collection. And my suggestions, I think now is the time to do it. The technology is there. Like you said, you can do this out of your passion. You don't have to have much resources. But and aside from the uh, my fine tuning, I suppose, if I may, is when it comes to the archaeological one. This is the thing for those who are not into the specialization of archaeobotany. In the macro remains, we've already established a ethos that we don't identify remains with high confidence that easily at the level of species. So we go through a certain kind of rigor, always limited by the diagnostic features that are left in the macros. And but it's a strong approach that we don't fool the other archaeologists reading our reports. But then also, because of the limited reference collection, as Mindy has experienced doing her work a decade or so later in the field, there are hardly any that you can refer to when it comes to archaeobotanical remains, because many of the reports don't even have plates that show what they identified. And so I think what is important in your approach, Mindy, is all of those identifiable macro remains, but are not identified to their binomials. In other words, we show them, and that's the reason why our reports must have plates, because, and then we give them a running label, let's say form 1 or form 2 or whatever. You can invent your nomenclature. If someone working in the field sees that image, they say, oh, we found that too. In fact, we managed to identify it because they have a reference collection. Then there will be a interaction and an improvement of information across the board. I think your project can contribute to this. But I think also that that format that you showed, that you have the living plant and then you have a sample of the seed, and the Amarantaceae, I think, no, the sample, that the archaeobotanical sample you showed, if it's possible, but it can be tedious to have other angles. So not just one angle. No? What the Japanese do, they have a cluster of it, and then so in that cluster they have many angles. But if it's archaeobotanical, it's only one. So if that can be done in different angles, no. So that's my suggestion, no? And the are you going to include a parenchyma and parenchymatous section of your database?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Yes.
Yes.
Same with mood. You see, with mood, you need a lot of cross section, a thin section, images. It's not that easy, you know. But with macro, that alone is a contribution. That alone is a contribution. Hold on. O sige, kayo na muna. Meron ako delivery. Sandali.
Shop
Sa akin yan.
Okay. I wanted to, there's also another question here, and I think it's also associated with what Dr. Paz was mentioning. I guess because you already showed the graphics or the what do you call it, yung mukha ng design mo. There was a question here, since you did not hire a programmer or a web developer for this project, what is your process in creating this database? So I guess maybe what is the back end experience when it comes to putting in information, and can other people also contribute to this?
I'm actually building a website using HTML and CSS. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
Because I'm also new to this.
All right. And because I was also thinking, and I consulted somebody about the database. But this is paid, of course. But they worked on paid database making. I apologize for the noise. Pero apparently they can also work with HTML and other stuff. But for now you're the only one who can put stuff in, put information in, and then when people start to contribute, should they go to you, or is it possible to do that?
I can teach them on how to upload the images and other details.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was also thinking about that the images as well and how it will work, because eventually we have different ways. May mga sketch fab na, so there might also be a link, but that's also something in the future. I have so many other questions, but there might be other questions from other people. Are there anyone?
Mindy, you're up to date with the pollen people, the pollen reference collection.
Opo.
I think that's a good model. No? You know, those guys are already using the online reference collections to do their identifications. No? I think they're really ahead of all the others so far. Yeah.
Meron pong isang website, Inside Wood. I used their website for the identification of archaeological wood samples.
Oh yes, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Anyway, for wood, we're already happy if we can distinguish if it's monocot, dicot, and then I infer later on. That's not a, yeah. Just going to Jay's concern about statistics. It's all very well, but we have to ask ourselves, Jay, if we go through the process of doing that, does it actually make any sense? Are we going to find new insights out of it? So until we really do manage, for example, a multivariant analysis to find patterns that you want to find patterns, I think it's best not to go deep too much in many of the statistical tools at this stage, and depending on the size of what you're looking at, sample size.
Also, speaking of, sorry, go ahead, Mindy.
Sorry, I just want to add, he can use, if he's going to analyze wood samples, he can use the Pareto index to identify the cumulative samples that he has for the assemblage.
There's a mention here from Angie Olioren, my botanical software, which is a $580 initial purchase and then $120 each year for subscription. So there's a link, which something that ASP or other institutions might be interested in. And also I wanted to, there's another question here, but I also have another question. Because I remember there was a talk by Celine Carfont who are, they're also into open, sharing open data. And they're following, she was mentioning something about fair use and also which also follows the care use. So it's also questioning or making sure that the indigenous peoples are their knowledge are also acknowledged in the database. Is this also what you envision?
Yes, before I collected the samples, I have to ask permission first from the local communities if I can publish the data that I collected. And they all agreed. We have a form of consent forms that they have to sign.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. And eventually because I guess it's also a big issue regarding environmental materials and the local people's use of the materials and how it's going to be used, who's going to benefit from it, and if it's going to be in a centralized database, how is it going to be taken care of? So that's a very good idea. There's a question here from Dean. Hi, Mindy, will the database also be available in tabular format?
Yes.
All right. So that's something that we can also look at. By the way, JJ also put a link to Celine's BINALOT talk. So that's what we were also referencing to. So we'll also put that in the link. So parang follow up. You can see how we've been progressing. Yes,
Mindy, when was the last time you visited the United States Department of Agriculture webpage? Because way back, over 20 years ago, you just write them and ask and request for seeds, and they send it to you. No? So that's how a lot of my reference collections was created. No, I email them and then they send it to me. You know, a nice a tub of seed samples. I wonder if they're still doing that, because that's again something that you can do. No? To just write repositories of seeds, and then you can and they'll send you samples.
The ones that you're putting up right now, Mindy, these are from your dissertation, correct? Or your past field works?
Anna,
I'm
repeat.
sorry.
Your audio was a little jumbled.
Oh, okay, sorry. The material that you're uploading right now for the repository for ASP, is it from it's from your dissertation and from your past fieldworks, right?
Yes, those materials are from my dissertation and from my previous research work from Hong Kong and other projects in Vietnam and the Philippines.
How long do you think this will take for you to upload everything or for you to make it?
Dr. Grace gave me a deadline, so I have 1 year to finish the database.
Right. Well, it doesn't have to be finished. It's just having some information is already going to be very helpful, I think. And for everyone's information, this is going to be on the new website. So if you remember the current website, it's an old mukhang 90s pa na website. So we're trying to update it. So watch out for that. We will be launching with ribbon cutting and with Mindy as our muse. All right. There are
Anna, that will happen before we all retire, no?
Well, pending with the website and the funding that I am looking for, then hopefully it will be done by this year. So I already emailed all of, by the way, I already emailed all of the faculty for asking for updated information. If you didn't get the email, please PM me so I can resend the form that you have to put in. So we're trying, and give us a nice updated photo, because otherwise I will be getting photos from your Facebook page. All right. There are more chats here. Angie Olioren provided a lot of links for regarding archaeobotanical and ethnobotanical databases online that other people might be interested in. There's the Native American Ethnobotany database. And Dr. Michelle Eusebio also put in some lists of archaeobotanical literatures. So you can check those out, especially when it comes to ethnobotany resources. And there's another comment here from Angie Olorian mentioning that it would be nice if we can have a children's book published with native plants and their uses. So the nice thing about this is when you do a database, you're not just helping out the archaeological community and the ethnobotanical community, you're also going to help out possible public archaeologists or people who might be wanting to write popular literature about it. Has that ever materialized in other places, Mindy, or is that one of your goals?
My batchmates in the ASP, Tara, Nan, Bernice, and Edwin, we are planning to create something for the children and for the IPs soon.
Right, that's amazing. Okay, and will be there's a mention here by Angie Olioren. If you want to set up a GoFundMe for the purchase of botanical software, similar IT expenses, I'm happy to chip in and spread to my contacts in social media. Okay, so maybe this is also another way as well to spread the information not just through softwares or building a database, but also helping spreading the word that these are the plants that may be associated to different cultures and how they're being used. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, JJ.
No, I'm good for now. Does anyone
All right.
else have any questions?
Now, can I just plug this for people? Well, anyway, it's relevant because this issue of environmental archaeology is chock full of research, but focus on South America. One will be happy, many on Peru. So this will be in the library, and then of course latest antiquity. Here, there's a article on the terraces along the Mediterranean. So just dating them, very relevant too. And a donation from supporters of the Palawan project who did a small on the Murillo on maps of Panay Island. Yeah? So will end up in the library. And the latest book, finally, he talked at the BINALOT talks way a long time ago on this project that he did. Nonoy Tan has finally published an amazing compendium on everything about headhunting ethnographically and ritual cannibalism with highly organized data and very rare, well printed images. No? So this is definitely a contribution. But this will not go to the library. But you can have a look. But the others will. Oh, this is Vival Publishing, part of the 500-year this campaign that they have, together with the Boxer Codex and everything.
By the way, Kaolo Bianse biography that you mentioned before last year,
It's in the library already, and there's a digital version of it already.
and
Yeah.
it's limit. It can be downloaded or it
Yeah.
can be read for free
Yeah.
for a limited period. So
Yeah.
you can utilize your UP account to access it. All right. Uh, I have a when regards to the to your project, Mindy. Uh, are you mentioned that this is going to be you're using HTML. How are you fixing it? Which program GUI are you using, or are you coding it by yourself?
Encoding the codes using a program.
Okay. I think that's very hard to do, especially with HTML and just CSS. So maybe we can talk more about how we can integrate it and make it more easier for you uh, to ensure that it's well, it can be that you can easily upload everything and then just add part of that. So it's really database and making. Because I think there's a lot of people here who are interested in fixing or organizing their own database and then sharing it with other people. So maybe that's something that we can start to utilize. Okay. Also, there's a follow-up question. And can you recommend resources for those trying to create a database with zero budget?
Zero budget. Wait lang. I will open the
Go ahead.
website. So this is the temporary botanical reference collection website. So di pa to tapos ah. So we have the about page, copyright and citation. So study notes that the students and others can use as a guide, search guide on how to use the the database. So also have the pages for archaeological comparatives, modern comparatives, references that others can also use for their research, and the acknowledgement page.
This is hopefully what you will be able to see sa new website. And hopefully it will be open soon. Thanks for sharing, Mindy. JJ, nawala ka pala kanina. Pasensya.
Yes, yes. My internet's being a little weird right now. But yeah, I was saying, uh, in regards to the question or comment about creating a website with zero funding, if you throw out the idea to anyone at ASP, I'm sure that we could try and find some funding somewhere for those that are interested in creating databases, because as we sort of been talking about, databases are very important and also help with the lowering the barriers for research. So yeah, I'm sure that if you talk to anyone in ASP about making a database, we would definitely help you in that endeavor.
That's a good point. This is also, maybe I can also ask this to Mindy. Are you thinking that this is open across the internet, or is this just an intranet? So just people will have to log on to access the database.
No, they don't have to log to access the data. So it is open access. So for the question earlier, what is the program that I am using? It's the Visual Studio Code.
So that's something that you get. It's also
It's free.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So for anyone who might be interested, you can also, for designing your websites or designing databases, you can also check that out. When it comes to archaeological, I know that Dr. Rofes is thinking about making a is planning to make a database for the zooarchaeological remains materials in ASP. So that's also we know that this is very important because everyone, especially now that you can't go to the labs, it might be helpful to just do things remotely. Of course, there are still some, and again, there's also the question of copyrights and also acknowledgement. So that's something that we also have to think about. Maybe this is also something that can be added in your website or in your database, Mindy, how to use it when referencing them. So that's something that you can. It might be a question of how will it be acknowledging you or and your dissertation, or will it be acknowledging the website itself? Because and will it be a team? Because eventually there's going to be a lot of contributions. I'm hoping at least.
Yeah, and
Um,
Dean just shared a helpful link on that specific purpose for, creative licenses or open access licenses. So yeah, you definitely take a look into that.
Yes. And that's also why so there's a Creative Commons licensing. And I think that's why it's also nice to go back as well to what Celine was mentioning, the fair and care principles that can be used when they're making a database. But I think they're not making a database. They're doing phytoliths, if I remember correctly. So that's something you might be interested in. And if anyone who's interested in open access in archaeology in the Philippines or in Southeast Asia, there's a panel on IPPA on that. So you might want to attend, or you might want to write a paper for it. Or if you want to have a very nice discussion, you can certainly try to attend there. So this will be happening on November. All right. Anything else? Mindy, you want to say something else regarding your work?
I do hope others could also contribute in the database that I'm actually creating.
Okay. So thanks for that. And I think for now, we will be closing this talk. If anyone has any other questions, maybe you can email Dr. Ceron if it's possible. Mindy, if you're open to it, maybe you can put your email address on the chat so other people might contact you if they have more questions that they think up later. In the meantime, thank you very much, Mindy, for this wonderful talk. We look forward to your next BINALOT talk, which you will be giving. You will be giving another BINALOT talk at the end of our project, in which you will summarize and describe what happened for that talk. Please stay. We will have a photo shoot of everyone for documentation. And also for next week, the speaker of the talk will be Dr. Kimberly Plump, who is a faculty of the Archaeological Studies program. Please like the BINALOT Talk Facebook page so you can see the title of the talk, which will be posted soon.
For those who want to join in the photo op, please turn on your camera.
Ito, Ana, para sa COA ba to? Wala naman tayo merienda.
Anna, you muted.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
And also one quick thing to note: next week's BINALOT talk is at 10 a.m. As opposed to our usual 1 p.m. Only to accommodate Dr. Plum because she is in Canada. So yeah, just be aware of the time if you want to attend next week's BINALOT talk.
All right. Okay, thank you. And see you next week at 10 a.m. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining the fresh and new 2022 post-Chinese New Year BINALOT talk. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.